Uh, so till now we have learned all the basic components or the basic features and the paradigm techniques or the tools, drivers, libraries which are supported in Python. So now in this chapter we'll build a simple web application using all the concept that we have learned. So we should be able to pretty much build an application not using any of the drivers or techniques that we haven't learned. So although we'll be using some of the frameworks, it will be pretty easy to understand and yeah, so it would give motivation to do more of in the future and understand these topics pretty well, applying this in a real world examples. So I'll be taking one real world application where this would be building in a REST API. So REST APIs are nothing but it's uh, a restless state transfer system where you this is a communication medium between the sender and the receiver. So there will be a server and the clients. So the way they communicate through the to the server and the client getting the response is actually a protocol which is handled by REST. So there are a lot of certain requirements that it has to meet to make it a purely RESTful system. So before REST APIs there were SOAP APIs which had its own set of rules to form a protocol and which was pretty complex. So that is the reason REST overtook the SOAP protocol. So one of the main difference between the REST and the SOAP is that SOAP used to use XML for the representation of data and the REST uses JSON for the representation of data. So JSON is a JavaScript object notation. So it's basically key value pair, whereas SOAP used to use a tree like hierarchy where there were parents and childs and it was not so readable. So REST actually aligns. So since we are going to use these APIs in web development, so it means that we are going to use the HTTP application. So the HTTP application REST aligns pretty much really nicely, so that all the features that the protocols that the REST gives aligns with the HTTP methods really, and it goes along really nice. So that's the main reason the REST APIs are pretty popular compared to SOAP APIs. Yeah. So alright, so let's move on to the concept and the tools which you're going to use to build this application. So the first thing we are going to use is a web server. So web server is nothing but so you can think about it as a application socket which will be running there and giving a response to our client side. So basically it's a server which will be running on some a web port, and that would handle all the requests given by the server. So that's will be our REST web server. So there are a lot of servers out there. So some of them the web server frameworks. So web server frameworks which are really popular are Django, and there's Flask, and there's Falcon, Tornado. So all these have advantages and disadvantages. Django was widely used, but for REST based frameworks it's not advisable to use it since it's really heavyweight. So for a REST implementation, the frameworks such as Falcon, Tornado, or Flask are preferred. Sanic is a new framework. So since it's a new and the contributions are really good, I thought of picking it up and giving it a try. So this Sanic is basically an asynchronous of web framework. It's a asynchronous server side web server. So basically it works on Python 3.5 plus, and so what it does is it handles all the requests in asynchronous manner. So it has a so it's tightly coupled with the async library of 3.5 and above. So that means you can parallelize the the statements. Basically, if there are a lot of connections to the web server, so if we write in a asynchronous manner, so the CPU could be shared between the different connections, so not making a lot of blocking calls. So there will be so it could be asynchronously handled. So this is the Sanic repo source. So it's pretty simple to install the Sanic. So all you need to do is do a pip install on Sanic. So let's leave this for now. So let's do a pip install on this one, Python 3. I guess I have already installed the Sanic over here. Yeah, it's already installed here in the system. So the Sanic is set up. So all you need to do is a pip install on Sanic, and you will have the Sanic framework ready to use in your Python script. And the next thing we'll be using a database. So we have already studied the same database. So thought of using the same database since not making it really complex. So all we need is not a lot of throughput. We are not worried about the performance. So since we are here to just to get a gist of how to build a web application, thought of selecting this SQLite, the simplest database out there for Python. It's a file based and we don't have to do any of the setup. It comes with the Python. And the third thing is a REST client to test our web application which we are building. So I'm going to use a Postman client. So if that's just a get call, we can use a browser, or we can use any. So we already studied in the networking part of the this tutorial that you can use the request module to make any kind of method, request methods. So we can use that all as well. We can try it out with the request method, or the simplest one would be to use the Postman. So all you need to go to the site and check out the installation for Linux and different different server and different desktop. It's a different they have different packages to install. For Debian they have Debian packages to install. So this is how it looks. So I will talk about it more once we are done with building this application. So there are only two parts in building an application. One is a web server framework side, and the next one is the database side. So we are keeping it really simple, not writing any documentation to this. This is not preferred. So I request you to add some documentation whenever you write, but I have made it really simple, and I have not added any tests as well. So there are two files basically. One is a models file, that's for the database handling, and one is a run file, that's for the web server handling. And as you can see, it's a really small, just like 25 lines of code we are written, and we will be able to achieve a web server which is like pretty simple enough to understand. Let's see. So I have written a static input for this web framework, but let's try to make it really a dynamic one. So what happens here is, so in this Sanic framework, so from the we already have installed the Sanic package. From Sanic we have to import this Sanic. It's a Sanic object, Sanic class that we are going to instantiate our application. So once we instantiate, that's one of the main class or main method which is required. And the thing with it is, when you instantiate an app, so it and run the app, so what it does is it runs the app on the UV loop. So UV loop is a package which will be already installed. It's an event scheduler, so that will be installed when the Sanic is already installed. So we can change the event scheduler to whatever we want. So event scheduler is basically, so when we have this async await technique, what happens is that to make the parallel execution, so that means asynchronously execute some of the tasks, we need to keep a lot of tasks in the event scheduler. So that's achieved by the UV loop of the Sonic. So you can actually replace UV loop with other instances as well, other schedulers out there. So okay, so once we have the app ready, so in the main function we'll be running the app. So app.run, and we'll give the host instance, the host IP, that would be localhost 000, that would be localhost, and then the port number. So port number is 8000. I've given it 8000. So now when you run this, it will just run it with the this localhost with the port 8000. So after that we have to instantiate a method. So so the main thing about any web application is that it will have a URL. So once you have a endpoint, it will have a particular URL to hit, so that we will be giving it with a route. So once we have this participant, so in the REST based system, each endpoint will be having, it's a good convention to write all the endpoints for each, sorry, all the methods for each endpoints. So say a participant, if you write all the methods such as get and post, so right now we have only two methods we have defined. So what happens is, when you want to get information about a participant, you call the get method of a participant. When you want to insert a document to the participant endpoint, you call the post method of the participant. And if you want to update, there is update a method, and if you want to delete a participant, you can, so that you can take it as an assignment to extend these methods, but we have written it for only two. So once we have this methods defined in the root, we have to write a asynchronous handler. This is a definite, you can write any of the handler. What it takes a request object as a input, and this request will be having its method. So to identify whether it's a get or the post method, we have to write its method in a condition. So we missed out this, so let's write in an elif statement that if it's a post, we'll execute the post here. So if it's a guest, we will execute this. If it's a post, we'll execute this part of the code. So that means if it's a get, we'll get all the information about the participant. If it's a post, we'll create a new participant. So creating a new participant. Okay, so we have a mistake in the spelling. So let's go to the models. Okay, so the models file is nothing but it has connection to the DB, and it has two functions right now. One is to list all the participants, and other one is to create a participant. So this is basically nothing but what we already studied in the CRUD operations in database. It does the same thing, but the only thing we are creating in a class where the init method performs instantiation of so the outside the globally we are connecting to the database, and in the constructor we are creating the table for workshop. So this is same as what we have studied in the database. With the name, age and city, we have this three attributes, three columns, and so the two other functions are, one is to create for the post, and one is to list all the participants. This does the same thing. So in the create, what one additional function we have is, or statement we have is, getting the last ID using the max operation. So once you get the last ID, we increment it. If it's a first time, if it's a none, we'll say the last ID is 0. Otherwise we'll make the last ID as last ID, and then we'll increment in the next last ID. The next when we insert into the next workshop record, we'll increment the ID, and we'll input the name, age and city as whatever is mentioned in the as passed to this create participant. So this is how you insert it to the database. So once this executed, you commit it, and the list participant is also quite similar to what we did. We create a cursor object with connection, execute, and do a select operation. So it basically is going to list all the, so there is no filter over here. We have a list of which has which is named participants. We are going to do is, we are going to loop through this cursor, and whenever we find this row of 0, row of 1, row of 2 will have the ID, name and city, we are going to create a dictionary of ID, assigning the ID, name assigning the name, city assigning the city, and we are going to append this to this participants. So it's going to iterate through all the list of participants, and it will form a list of dictionaries. Okay, we can look into that. So how we run is this. So once you have this ready, so we can basically run from over here. So I think to get a better gist, let's run it from the terminal. So let's say Python 3, you just do run.py. This is how it executes. So you can make a debug true here, over here. So if you make it debug true, what happens is you will be able to see all the logs over here, and you will get a nice gotta go fast of Sanic. This is a motive of Sanic. That means it says we got to make our web server really fast. So it also points out that your web server is right now running on this particular port in this particular address. So let's go to that address. Yeah, so it says let's change it to localhost. So if you are on the same machine, we don't have to give them. It says this slash, it means it doesn't have a slash root, so we have a root called participant. Yeah, so what it did is when we called a get of this, we got a response null. It doesn't have any value right now. So to make a post call, that's why I was stressing out, we need a postman. So how we do is you create a new, let's say you create a new tab, and you can create a post request, and we'll paste this same URL. So right now, since I'm not taking any arguments over here, there's no arguments over here in the request, so it's just going to, I have given some static value here. It's going to put that static value into the database. So if I send a request, it says status true, that means it has inserted the value. The value would be Kaushik, age, and Bangalore is inserted to the database. So next time you get give a get call. Now previously we got an empty, so we got an empty data set. So next time we call this again, it's going to call the list participants. It will go through all the database collections, and so there will be one data collection found for this value, and it's going to return that, and we will be returning that with the JSON. JSON is it's a function from the Sanic.response, so it will structure, serialize basically whatever we give it in dictionary form to JSONs, and then so it will see whether I can serialize that into a JSON, and then it basically only takes dictionaries, and here we are giving the list of the participants, and that will be given to the front end client. Now let's refresh this. Yeah, so we see this value. So now I have one name, Kaushik, and city Bangalore ID, and one. So now all we have done is we have statically coded. So now how do we make this a little bit dynamic? So to make this dynamic, we have a post, and in the request method, so let's say we should be having something to get the data out. Let's say request.json. Let's see if it has a request.json value. So if you are passing with the JSON value, it should be having a request.json, and let's try to print that out. Let's pass this as a JSON. So now the post, we will pass it as a JSON. So we'll pass a raw and say it's a JSON. We'll pass with the key value pair. So always the key value pair should be double quoted and with the colon, and it should be a string. Yeah, So now we are ready with the JSON. Let's finish this off here. So we have this body, and I got a restart since I made some changes. Let me close this and let me run over here. Yes, so I can run over here also. I have made a settings in my IDE so that it runs over here, but I'll be able to see the output there itself. So now I make a request with that particular JSON. So there was an error, so let's check the error. Yeah, dict object is not callable, so I think so what JSON does is we don't want this. It's just an attribute, it's not a callable. So let's restart. Let's clear this off, send request. Yes, now you can see we got a JSON. There was a table. Okay, so this table creation error is due to that the table already exists, so that's why it gives an error. Yes, and so we have this JSON now. So what we can do with this JSON is we'll assign this to some temporary variable, saying that it's a participant. So I hope we are not using any participant. We are using a participant here. So let's call this as a participants insertion. And so the name would be participant insertion colon. You can see over here the name, age, and we should be using the same key from this JSON. So let's say name, and here it's age, and here it's city. Yeah, so now we have this. So I think it's already an integer, and this is in string. We don't have to convert anything. So let's just run it again. Yeah, so now as you can see, you can make the same get call over here also. Yeah, so you'll get Koshik. I have inserted Koshik twice, and we'll get the same thing over here also. We'll get the 2 times Koshik. Okay. So now we'll we'll call the post with the body we have. So let's give some other name. So let's name sharing. So let's say he has come from Kerala. Let's insert it. Yeah, so the status is again true. So this is a body response we get because, so this is a body response I have given over here. If nothing goes bad, we'll get the true. And also you can in the log, you can see that 200, that means a status success. So now there's a third object inserted. If you do a get, you should be able to get the third object over here. Yeah, you can see sharing Kerala and the ID equal to 3 has been inserted. So these are data that we are getting back from this particular get. That's from the list participants we are getting. I think this is pretty much our application. So this is a minimalistic application that we have created without any test docs or something. So I have shared this in the repo, and this will be inside the script web app. So this could be altered, and it could be added a lot of functionality tweak for the tutorial purpose. So one thing that we can do is that the easiest thing, we have get and post. We can try to add all other delete and update. In the update call, what we can do is we can pass the updated JSON object, just instead of passing the passing the body. So we should take the body and replace that particular ID with the newly created values. And in the update, in the delete, what we can do is we can take the ID as a parameter for this delete. In the JSON we can pass just the ID as a parameter, and so ID anyway we will be getting over here when you do a get, and you can go ahead and delete that using the delete operation. So right now if you make a delete call or update call, anything, delete call, it says you give an error saying that method delete not allowed URL participant. So the to just build the skeleton, let me just add delete over here. Yes, if I just add a delete over here, when I run it, so this code just let me uh, create a delete request. It says an invalid response type because I don't have any of the return type here, so you have to keep on returning. So you can basically write an else saying return status false, and you can give a message saying method not implemented. Yeah. So you run it again and you'll get that response saying false, status false, method not implemented. This is a way of writing, keep on incrementing our project. So once you have implemented the delete, you can have one more delete operation inside the participant, method inside the participant, which deletes from the database, and you can call that and give a response that it's a successful operation. That's how you keep on incrementally building on the project. And you can add some tests. So there are like a couple number of tests you can do it for the unit testing. Also the SANIC itself has a testing framework. It provides some kind of stub so that you can write unit tests. Yeah, that's about building a small. So we have successfully built a simple local application that we are running using with SANIC web framework and um, SQLite database, and we are just using the client to Postman to get the results. Okay, thank you for watching.